what is LSD and what does it do?
The effect is somewhat like looking through a microscope. Suddenly, when you look through a microscope, you discover that there's an invisible world around you that you hadn't known about before you did it. The same thing is true of the psychedelic drug. You're aware of processes that are going on inside your own brain. You're aware of the exchange of energies that are going on between your sense organs and the energies around them that you weren't aware of.
Good morning. It's nice to be back at Harvard. I think the 60s were great, but I think the 80s are incredible.
How about the gay 90s?
Well, this is the Shiva 80s. That'll take care of that. An A, so be your king. Albert Hofmann has written a new book called LSD, My Problem Child. Reflections on Sacred Drugs, Mysticism, and Science. Albert Hofmann was the head of chemical research for the Sandoz Pharmaceutical Company in Switzerland. Okay? And this book is published by J.P. Tarcher of Los Angeles. I think I recommend you get it. Tarcher is putting out good books these days. I want to read you the last paragraph of the book. This is Albert Hofmann speaking. I see the true importance of LSD in the possibility of providing material aid to meditation aimed at the mystical experience of a deeper, comprehensive reality. Such a use accords entirely with the essence and working character of LSD as a sacred drug. There are so many levels to play this game at today, because there is certainly fascinating socio-political ramifications. This is 10 days short of 20-year date. I was sent a letter by Nathan Pusey saying that I was no longer in the employ of Harvard. And I'm sure I have some gossip you don't know. But I'd rather share these few moments. What we're going to do is I'm going to talk for a while, and then Timothy's going to talk for a while. And then we'll either take a break then or we'll talk a little together. And then after intermission, you'll have a chance to ask questions and we can play. Okay? We can all play here until 2 o'clock when we get thrown out. Welcome. You okay? Nice to be with you. I got to say that Timothy, before I get serious, that I'm in an interesting position. David and Timothy are two of my very, very profound mentors of this lifetime. And to acknowledge and honor these two beings who have taken me each in a certain deepening direction. David met me as applying for graduate school at Wesleyan when he was chairman of the department in 1952. He met me at an EPA conference, and he hired me on the spot to come down to take a master's. He is my longest continuing friend at this point. I mean, in terms of people you meet along the way that you keep. He and I have been friends now since 1952. And Timothy took me by the ears, lovingly, and shook me free of a heavy, Jewish, neurotic, middle class, closed, tight, frightened kind of psyche that was absolutely strangling me. And he just blew it all away. What more could you ask of a teacher than that? I think I'd really like to share just reflections about psychedelia, psychedelics, psychedelic chemicals, tryptamine derivatives, altered states of consciousness. I must say the past 20 years have been the happiest years of my life. Scary, but happy. And over these years, I've continued to, depends on who you ask, honor or play with psychedelics. From 1963, when I left Harvard, I became very active in the psychedelic movement, and then went to India later. And met a guru. And the second day, somebody had told him apparently that I used LSD, and he said to me, "You use that yogi medicine?" And I said, "Yes." "You got any of it?" "Yes." So I brought out the bottle of this and that, and I put it in my palm, and I pointed out the LSD, and I gave him one, which was 300 micrograms, which was a good adult dose of pure acid. And he said, "Come on." So I gave him 300 more. He said, "Come on." So I gave him 300 more. He took them in his hand, and he went like that. And I, as a social scientist, said, "This is going to be very interesting." And at the end of an hour, nothing had happened at all. At the end of 2 hours, nothing had happened. Now, I couldn't believe that anybody could take 900 micrograms and nothing would happen. This is truly a miracle, a power, a city. So I came back to America and I told all about this. But I had this gnawing suspicion in the back of my mind that maybe what he did was sort of hypnotize me, and he threw them over his shoulder. So when I came back to India, I found myself in his presence after some months, and one of the things he said to me was, "Did you give me some medicine last time I was here?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Did I take it?" And he looked at me. I said, "Well, I think so." Okay, that was that dialogue. And he said, "What happened?" I said, "Nothing." He looked at me, "Joe, go away." So I went away for the night, and the next morning I came back, came up and he said, "You got any more of that medicine?" I said, "Yeah." So I brought my medicine kit and I had 5 pills left, the 5 pills that were 300 each. So I put one in his hand, and he took more and 2 more. He took every one but the broken one. He didn't want the broken one. He took the 4 sacred plants, and he held them, and he took each one, and he opened his mouth and stuck out his tongue. Then he said to me, "Will they make me crazy?" And I said, "Probably." And he said, "Can I take water?" I said, "Sure." So he got water, and he drank water, and then he brought an old man over with a watch. He said, "How long will it take?" So I thought body weight, you know, maximum an hour, my goodness. So I said an hour. So he held the watch, and at the end of an hour, nothing. And he says, these medicines were known about in the Kulu Valley long ago. But he said, that kind of knowledge has been lost for a long time. Been lost. So later, somebody said, is it useful, LSD? He said it could be useful. He said it could allow you to come in and have the darshan of Christ. Meaning you could come in and be in the presence of living spirit. But he said, you can't stay there. You can only stay about 2 hours, he said, and then you got to leave. He said it would be better to become the living spirit of Christ than to visit it. But he said, your medicine won't do that. He said, it's not the true samadhi. Now, I've said, I'd suspect that I've taken LSD about once every 2 years since I first ingested with Timothy. I've taken it many, many more times during the first 5 or 6 years. But I don't think I've missed a 2-year period. Because I always assume that I'm going to start from a different launching pad. Because all the things that happen to me in that 2 years will put me in a different space from which to take off. And I'll explore a new unchanneled kind of planes of reality. And then I also feel like I'm a member of an old explorers club that has a loyalty to have reunions, you know, and so let me describe one trip to you, because that all will always convey the way what's happening to me. I've been, if I get too long-winded or anything, just stop me. We'll use each other. We don't have Jeremy. I've been a student over the years of Theravadan Buddhism, which is the Pali doctrine of Buddhism. And in the Visuddhimagga, which is one of the old texts, it describes the way as your concentration deepens by doing Vipassana meditation. As your concentration gets more laser-like, and your awareness stands back from time more, you get to the point where in very deep meditation, you begin to see your own thoughts arising, existing, and passing away. Now, as Buddha pointed out, those thoughts are passing at the rate of about 1 trillion per blink of an eye. So for you to stand back far enough to see a thought come into existence, exist, and pass away means that you have gotten your mind very far back in the relation to time. Is that coming through? Can you hear what I'm saying? Anybody out there? Okay, thanks. My ego needs a lot of love, so you just got to remember that. Okay. It works basically on love. The more you love it, the more you get out of it. Okay, so there's this great description of the Visuddhimagga. The Visuddhimagga is like a thing that makes Western psychology of the human mind look kind of uninteresting, because it is so sophisticated in its analysis of states of consciousness. And then it describes how as you get to the point where the thought comes into existence, exists and passes away, between the end of that thought and the beginning of the next thought, there is a space. And if you enter that space, you are known as a stream enterer. And that is entering into what's called nibbana, which is the field behind the form, if you will, or the field that is inherent within the form, or the field out of which the form arises. Okay, now let's shift gears. I am at the Mid-America Motel in Salina, Kansas. Okay. I have been driving across the country, and a rather secretive friend of mine has given me a bottle of LSD which sparkles in the dark. And I am on my way to Boulder, Colorado to teach with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche at a place called Naropa Institute, where we began Naropa that summer. And so I've got a whole trunk full of Tibetan tankas that I'm delivering to Trungpa. And I've got 3 days free, so I decide room 125 of the Mid-America Motel is my ashram, my monastic cave, and I take the tankas out of the trunk and hang them over the different things. I put a picture of my guru in the middle of the television set, turn on the picture with no sound, so it's all coming out of his head. Yeah. And I have different pictures around the room, and then in the floor in front of the television set, I have important questions to ask myself, like, who are you? Things like that. Okay. Take off all my clothes, I take this medicine. And I need to go to the toilet, and I figure I got 20 minutes to sort of get everything. And I had candles and incense, and I'd push the beds aside and so on. Well, I was in the toilet, and it was like an elevator in the trade building. And I realized that whatever this was, it was more than I had anticipated. And that moment of fear of more than is a great one. I thought, what did he give me? Maybe I got the wrong dosage. I shouldn't trust him anyway. I began what you would call a bad trip in the technical language of this psychedelic movement. So I proceeded to go directly from the toilet to the door of the motel to call for help. Now, my mind then imagined a naked man rushing out of room 125 calling for help. Okay. I knew I was going to die, you see. I decided I was going to die, and so I figured what'll happen is they're going to call an ambulance, and then they're going to take this naked man and put him on, and it's going to be to there and Thorazine and questions and lights, and I'm going to die anyway, and why don't I die a different way than that way? See? So I come back inside. I just had opened the door to the chain, close the door again, come back in, and I sit down in front of the television set, and I take up a picture of my guru, and I look directly. It's a very fierce one in which he's pointing, like, stop fucking around. So that was okay. And he looks at me, and I say to him, Maharaji, let me die. I figure this is as good a time to go as any. And what'll they find? I just imagine them finding the next day this man with all these little signs and this picture in the middle of the set. And I mean, these are the artifacts that are left from that. That's the message. And it seemed like as good a message as any. So I said, let me die. And I lay down and I cuddled into a fetus position. And my mind, I began to pull back from my mind, and I began to see my thoughts arise, exist, and fall away. And for moments you could focus on the arising of mind, and you could see how, like Christ says, I am making all things new. Look, all things are being made new. And you saw what it looked like to look and see the creation of all forms out of formless. There was another moment where you just saw the kind of continuity of it all. And then there was this moment where you saw it all turning into shit. Just decaying. You saw everybody turning into skeletons. You saw everything turning into liquid. It was the one where a lot of Buddhist monks commit suicide. Because you and everything you believed in and everything turns into that. It's Shiva. It's the dance of Shiva. And then I saw this space. And so at one point, I just, not by choice, I just drifted into the space. The next thought I had that I can remember was, wow, you can be anything this time around. You're free. You can do anything. Because it became so apparent to me the way in which mind creates. And I suddenly experienced myself as the creator instead of the victim. Because as long as I identify with my creation, I'm the victim. Now, what I experienced was a break in consciousness, not like sleep and not like dream and all. What I experienced was a break in consciousness. And when I came back from that, I experienced that I had not come back from nothing. And I came back very, very peaceful, very fulfilled, very present, very at home, very free. Later, when talking in Bodh Gaya in India with a meditation teacher, I merely described this experience to him. I didn't mention the LSD. And he said to me, "Oh, you are a stream enterer. You have entered nirvana." I said, "No, but you don't understand. I took LSD to do that." He said, "Doesn't matter. You are a stream enterer." And that's the way I understand that methods are methods are methods. Meditation's a method and psychedelics are a method. Methods are all traps. A method by its nature is a trap. It has to entrap you into itself in order to eject you at the end. You just hope it self-ejects. Because I've met a lot of dry meditators. Are you enlightened? I meditate. I know, but are you enlightened? I meditate. And I've certainly met a lot of acid heads. Are you enlightened? I take acid. I know, but I'm just going to tell you one story that I've just told around because it just is such a beautiful statement of what was inherent in what happened in the 60s. I was going to go much further out in this lecture, but I guess you're not worth it or something. I'll get there. Let me tell you this one story. Oh, don't mind it. It's all right. You can handle it being unloved. We love each other enough to be able to handle that. Okay, this is a thing I've told in a lot of my lectures. It's so juicy. In the late 60s, everybody that came to my lectures all looked alike. They all, in the 70s, they all smiled, wore beads, and they had, I've seen it all. I've seen the light. I'm happy. That kind of. And I was sort of like an uncle. This was the godfather, and I was sort of an uncle. And I would speak on the road, and all this crowd would come, and we'd all smile at each other. And then I would say outrageous things that you only knew if you knew. And everybody would, yeah, we know. Well, there was a woman in the front row, and she was about 70, and she had a little hat with oranges and cherries and things on her head. She had a black patent leather bag and responsible-looking Oxford shoes and a print dress. She looked like one of your relatives. And she was sitting there, and everything I said, she went like this. And I thought, how does she know? I mean, so I'd say something more outrageous that only real heads would know, and she'd go like this. And I thought, well, she may have a neck problem, and I'm studying. Finally, at the end of the lecture, I sort of egged her on to come over, and she came over, and she said, "Oh, thank you so much. That made perfect sense, all the things you were talking about." I said, "How do you know? What method do you use that brings you into the space where you know those things?" She leaned forward very conspiratorially and she said, "I crochet." And if I look out at my audiences these days and see the heterogeneity of the group gathered, I see that what we were a part of in the psychedelia in the early 60s and all through the late 50s and through the 60s and 70s, all of that whole process, not in itself, it's certainly television and transportation and economics and so on have all contributed, but psychedelics was one of the major forces in a shift in consciousness in this culture. And it is very, very fast becoming a massive just change in awareness, as I can see. And it's a much more heterogeneous group. It's people that come from all they crochet. And yet they know something. Something did indeed happen. There was one time in the 60s when Tim and I were working together, when I took psilocybin with Madison Presnell. Madison Presnell was a black psychiatrist. He was our doctor in residence. And Madison and I took psychedelics. And I grew up in Newton. And I was, yes, Weeks Junior High School and Newton High. And see, I grew up in a middle-class Jewish ghetto, and I was trained not to have prejudice. So I didn't have any prejudice. And when I took psilocybin with Madison, I really liked Madison. We were friends. But I was still very aware. The figure was still color. And somewhere in that session, I looked at Madison and I saw a fellow being just like me who was traveling through an incarnation that was different than mine, in which he went through wearing that costume and I went through wearing this costume, and he had that set of experiences and I had this set of experiences, and we both grew through the experiences, and everything was going fine. And it changed my feeling towards all individual differences in other human beings. It allowed me to see, to reverse figure and ground, so that I saw the way in which beings are one rather than the way in which they're many. Not instead of, but and also. And the shot in the arm that gives to one's compassion is immense. Because you can, with psychedelics, you can control states of consciousness. So you can go to the one where you look around and you see everybody as brothers and sisters. And then you go to the one where you look and you see that it's behind sexual identity and it's behind even separateness, and you see you're looking at yourself, looking at yourself, looking at yourself, looking at yourself. And there's only one of it in drag. It's the one saying, hey, let's be the many for fun. What do we do today? What'll I do today? Well, I think I'll be many. Ooh, you're scary. Ollie, ollie, in free. See, now we're the one again. And when I look at you as one, if you hurt, I hurt. And I can feel that a lot of my social action now, my anti-nuclear stuff, my planetary interests, my prison stuff, my dying project, it all has to do with my experiencing the different parts of us that feel pain. And just like you would adjust your back with a pillow when it hurts, you just start to move the energies into that area of being with it in a way that it is free to let go of the pain if it wants to. And I've had these dialogues with Dan Ellsberg just to compete with his dialogues with Gordon Liddy. It's a great minuet, I'll tell you. I mean, it's unbelievable when you think about it. Tim gets busted by, is this stealing your material? Tim gets busted by Gordon Liddy. Liddy ends up in the White House. I mean, busting Nixon. Tim and Liddy both are in jail. Tim and Liddy both end up with the same lecture agent. One creative thought, and there's a whole year of Liddy versus Leary. Liddy really busted Nixon based on breaking into Dan Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office. Tim and I were partners in this minuet. Then we turned to our corner, and there's Gordon Liddy for him and Dan Ellsberg for me. So I've been doing my dance with Dan, who's an ex-Marine captain. Okay? And Dan can't understand how I could trust that place in myself, that my social action would come out of a sense of the intuitive rightness of my heart and act. Because he wants to stir up my mind with fear and urgency. And I can see from psychedelia and meditation and everything I put into myself, because my message to you today is me. I'm it. This is the datum. This is the product of whatever psychedelics is about. It wasn't an error in my life. And I can say to Dan, Dan, I don't need to scare the shit out of myself to act. Because if I act out of fear, all I am doing is perpetuating fear. And the root of the nuclear sphere, the root of nuclear threat is fear. And my actions can come out of joy and a sense of my impeccable warriorness, my intuitive participation in life. Because I noticed I had two kinds of people in my audiences. Those people who wouldn't cop to the fact that they had experienced being other than who they thought they were. You know, they said, I've never turned on. Everybody's had thousands of these experiences. It's all nonsense. It's just figure ground. You treat it as error until you can look at it. So I'd have half the audience, and I want to say to them, go, baby, go. Get loose, get high, lose a step, dance, come on, turn on. And the other part of my audience, they found that out. And they're floating out in la-la land. So, I want to say to them, come on, get your shit together, learn your zip code, get a job, clean your, Because form is no other than emptiness, and emptiness is no other than form. And form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. And to deny this world of form, this exquisite, awesome world of manifestation, of the formless into form, to deny that is to go astray. Because it's God made manifest. And I'm just learning how to be a human being. And I've been through the cycle of trying to be holy and push Dick under the rug. And I can feel all these changes going on. And my days at Harvard and the days in psychedelia and the days in India, it's not an either-or proposition at all. It just all keeps summating as your wisdom deepens and your knowledge gets tempered into wisdom. Wisdom is what you are. Knowledge is what you know. That's enough for the first round.
Well, I'm pretty happy to be here. With Richard. With David McClellan, who brought us together, helped us move on. Helped us come together again. I understand that Walter Houston Clark is here. Walter, where are you?
one-liner. Maybe everybody didn't hear that. You ought to repeat it.
Those that didn't hear that, Walter said, every good movement needs one good square. Walter, you're round and you're square and you're spiral and whatever geometry is needed, you're there with it. Thank you for coming. There are many other of our old friends present, I'm sure. There's going to be a reception afterwards, and I know we'll meet again there. I feel this is a homecoming, not just in the sense of being with Richard and David and Walter, and most of all you, to be back at Harvard, but also in a deeper genetic sense. I was produced on this planet as an American-Irish person. And to come back to Boston, which is, after all, the Atlantic seaport to which 8 of my great-grandparents arrived after migrating from the old world, after climbing the 3,000-mile wall of the stormy North Atlantic, to come to a new and kind of scary continent, to start a new life, settling around Boston, Woburn, Waltham, is coming back to my roots. There are many ways in which I could talk, many metaphors, many models, many computer programs. I could pop in the biocomputer today. I started off with the sociobiological or the genetic to recall for myself and for you that I have an Irish background, which is nicely celebrated in Boston. As soon as I got old enough to look around the planet, I migrated away from Massachusetts, 3,000 miles west. And for the last 30-odd years, I have been an immigrant, a migrant, a frontier person on the far banks of the Pacific Ocean, a Californian. So it's like coming back to the old sod to come to Boston. As I did at the invitation of David McClellan in 1960 to meet up with my partner and friend Richard. I didn't know much about Harvard when I got here. The first few weeks I was here, I was guided around by Richard and by our friend Frank Barron, an old and loyal, distinguished psychological colleague. As I wandered around Cambridge and Harvard, I slowly began to realize that there was an extraordinary tradition here. A mainline tradition of psychological inquiry. Now, I'm not talking about Professor Skinner, or Professor Bruner, or Professor Kissinger, or Professor Schlesinger, all of whom have performed brilliantly. I'm talking about another tradition which has existed in this small village since the early days of its founding. A tradition of transcendental thinking, a tradition of wondrous internal paganism, a tradition that said, turn on, tune in, go within, become self-reliant. A tradition that was perhaps founded by Ralph Waldo Emerson. You know, Emerson's an interesting person. Emerson came to the Harvard Divinity School in, I believe, 1838. Before that, he'd been in Europe, where he had hung out with such notorious druggies as Coleridge, Wordsworth, the Nature School of English philosophy and poetry, who were expanding their minds with such substances as hashish and opium, turning on their minds with such strange and curious and illuminating books as the Bhagavad Gita. So Emerson came back to Boston, came across the Charles River at the Harvard Divinity School, gave that famous speech in which he said, don't look for God in the temples, nor in the buildings, nor from the pulpits. Look within, find the divinity inside yourself, drop out, become self-reliant, translated as do your own thing. And for, I believe, 33 years, he was not allowed back on these sacred territories. We're back after 20.
They're more forgiving now.
As an evolutionary genetic scientist, I would hope this is one piece of evidence suggesting that evolution is speeding up. Of course, American psychology, as we were taught it, was founded by a Harvard professor named William James. He wrote Principles of Psychology, which is the classic text of American psychology. Kind of looking that over as I arrived here, I came across those interesting chapters which led me to read the other book by William James, The Varieties of Religious Experience. A book which has corrupted many a mind, in which he describes the glories of nitrous oxide in far more colorful prose than the most intoxicated Irishman. Every day as we walked from across Harvard Square to our offices in 5 Divinity Avenue, the significance of which did not escape us, we passed by that little jeweled chapel, the Swedenborgian chapel. And Frank Barron told me that William James's father was I think he was the minister there. The great eminence of the social relations department in those days was another wondrous New England scholar named Harry Murray. Harry Murray was not your run-of-the-mill pedantic academic. Among other things, he was one of the founders of the OSS, which later became the CIA.
Oh, God.
During World War II, he assembled the best minds, if there are such, of American psychology to develop new ways of assessing personality. Some of the first studies on brainwashing, drug-induced cathartic verbalization were done by the OSS. When we met Murray for the first time, after we'd started our research, he looked with great interest and approval. And as I remember, quickly volunteered to be one of our subjects. It was a little later that we discovered that the tradition of transcendent thinking, the tradition of mind-expanding chemistry, was not limited to Emerson or Thoreau or to Margaret Fuller, one of the first great American feminist philosophers, who also had spent some time in Europe studying transcendental philosophy, taking the drugs of the time, married a dashing Italian revolutionary baron, came back to America to continue the crusade, and unfortunately was shipwrecked off Fire Island. In addition to this long tradition, mainstream tradition of far out Sufi, Gnostic, Harvard experimentation, there was another branch of drug research. The CIA had been running projects in this area for at least 10 years before David McClellan brought the two of us together. Matter of fact, hundreds of Harvard students had been tripped out by answering ads in the Harvard Crimson. He goes, "You got $25 if you volunteered for an experiment."
Really?
Mm-hmm.
CIA?
Yeah. Turned out later that such people as Ken Kesey and Allen Ginsberg had first been illuminated by volunteering for such experiments. So when I got here in 1960, I must tell you that I was a square kid on the block. Harvard University was the big league of chemical psychoactive exploration. And for that, I thank you, John Harvard. Starting in 1960, that was an interesting year. John Kennedy was running for the presidency against Richard Nixon. I guess he stole it, the election in Texas and Chicago, but in any case, he became president. There was a sense of youthful energy in the country. Richard and I, and Frank Barron, and Walter Clark, and Gunther Weil, George Litwin, and many, Ralph Metzner, and many others began what was known as the Harvard Psychedelic Research Project. In those days, it did seem almost miraculously simple. We gave, we shared, we took these drugs, as novices, as amateurs, hesitantly moving into a field that had no signposts or guidelines. There was simply no language in Western psychology to describe altered states of consciousness or ecstasies or visions or terrors. The psychiatrist said these were psychotomimetic experiences, but that didn't seem to tell us too much. We were smart enough, and I give us this credit, to know how little we knew. We shared these experiences with several hundred people. First of all, with young graduate students and with young instructors and older professors. Matter of fact, anyone that really wanted to take the voyage was welcome to come along. We went out to Concord Prison because we wanted to see how the illuminated or the activated or the accelerated brain would work with people very dissimilar from Harvard professors and divinity school scholars. With the leadership of Dr. Pankey and Walter Clark, we went over to Boston University. And on that famous Good Friday, gave psychedelic drugs and placebos to, I think, 30 divinity students from Andover, Newton. It was probably the greatest Good Friday in 2,000 years. For half of the subjects. The control subjects got to read the Bible. If we learned one thing that day, Walter, we learned that it's foolish to do a double-blind control placebo experiment in which you have half the people in the room on LSD and the other half not, because after 5 minutes, no one's fooling anyone. In these first 2 or 3 years, we performed without the benefit of federal grants or foundation support. There must have been 30, 35 of us working together voluntarily with no principal investigators.
That was us.
Once you put that pill in your mouth, you were the principal investigator, like it or not. It did seem so simple and so wondrous because we were fairly good people with a wonderful support system, seriously and frivolously, joyously and thoughtfully, knowing that we were on some frontier, moving into some wonderful future. And naturally, our results were positive. Because we were positive. There were a few moments of fright. Ships lost aloft. Aldous, where are you? Where'd Aldous go? Oh, yeah. Bump. Here's Aldous. There's Wilbur and Orville. We kept careful records, and we made thoughtful observations and came out with many important theories of psychopharmacology, including set and setting and so forth. The problem was, of course, that I guess the world wasn't ready for us.
I think they were. I think it all worked fine.
Yes.
I mean, I don't for one moment wish that I was not thrown out of Harvard. Anymore.
There are a few Harvard people here in the room. About 10%. I think I can speak for Richard when I say that we have never, since the day of our being canned, felt any rancor towards Harvard University. I've already told you it's the main line of American mysticism and transcendental thinking. You're way ahead of West Point on that. There have been many wonderful men and women that have been Harvard graduates, and it's nice to say, I'm a Harvard graduate. In the history of Harvard, there have only been 2 men that have been fired.
Is that true? Really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Emerson doesn't count. He was like on long sabbatical.
Whether it's a fact or not, I love the image.
Yeah. It's a serious question, in 100 years, whether Harvard will be known for its graduates or its
Oh, God. What a chutzpah he has. It's unbelievable.
What was the name of that college that fired Socrates, Richard? We're going to make sure that Harvard's name will go down in history. When we left Harvard, by the way, it was the Harvard Crimson that got us canned. The Harvard Crimson has asked both of us to write an op-ed essay, which will appear, I think, in Monday's paper. I'd like to accept that invitation. If you're going to be around, will you do it together?
I'm not going to do it.
I know you aren't. Is it okay if I do it?
Be my guest.
What I'd like to do,
send my love.
and if the Harvard Crimson's here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to come over to the Harvard Crimson office tomorrow and sit there in the newsroom, and if you can loan me a typewriter, I can even handle a word processor. And I'd like to type a little essay right there in the newsroom. I'll get some notes from you so that...
You'll know what to say.
I've signed your name to joint essays in the past.
He has indeed. He wrote Psychedelic Experience when I was out in the kitchen washing dishes.
Now, sometime after we left Harvard, well, right after we left Harvard, we, let's see, we went to Mexico, got kicked out of Mexico. We went to
Dominica.
Dominica, got kicked out of Dominica.
Antigua.
Antigua, oh, did we get kicked out of
Antigua, yes. Millbrook, then we went to Millbrook.
Yeah. Like, when we assembled at Millbrook, New York in the fall of 1963, we looked at each other and said, we've been kicked out of one college and 3 countries in 3 months. Now, that's...
We're doing well.
Yeah.
And then we found Melon Country.
Melon Country, yeah. Interestingly enough, I haven't showed this to Richard yet, but I got my Freedom of Information files from the CIA, and they actually tracked us, and I have the CIA documents about what we were doing in Dominica and how many people we were there, and they say, these people are going to start, quote, this is CIA language, an alleged happiness hotel.
We should have hired them for press.
The CIA is wonderful, and I'm sure that Harvard being the home of the OSS and the CIA, I hope there's some alumni here of the CIA. Like when they kidnapped me in Afghanistan, the memo said, informal extradition.
Really?
Anyway, no more CIA jokes. That's too...
Yeah.
After this experience of getting canned from Harvard in 3 countries, we ended up at Mellon Country in Millbrook, New York, and stayed there for about 3 years. A wonderful series of chapters in my autobiography.
Just released.
Being published next month by Jeremy Tarcher and Houghton Mifflin. Jeremy, are you here? There's Jeremy. Two wonderful pictures of Richard in my autobiography.
Worth it for that.
Yep.
It's actually good, though. I read parts of it because I've only seen it for a few hours, but it is fun.
So we ended up in Millbrook, New York, and stayed there for 3 or 4 years. And then we realized that we had escaped from a wonderful institution called Harvard University, and had set up another institution called, well, it was IFIF, it was the Castalia Foundation, it was called the
Freedom Center,
League for Spiritual Discovery. God knows we had a name.
God
a week.
knows, I remember that one.
Yeah. We had enough of happiness hotel keeping. The problem with running happiness hotels is that nobody wants to leave. So we decided to, we literally decided we would, remember that time we decided we would define ourselves as global travelers. This was after Sputnik, but before Apollo. And we found out that for, in those days, $1,700, you could get an around-the-world ticket, which you had to use within 1 year. So we agreed that we would make an annual rotation around the globe in 1 year. And first Ralph Metzner went, and then Nena and I went, and then you went. And we closed down our center at Millbrook, and like astronauts, buckling our spacesuits and heading for the 4 quadrants of the galaxy, or like knights of old saddling to go to the 4 quarters, or 4 prison escapees heading in 4 different directions. Whatever metaphor you want to use. We decided to spread over the globe and see what was going on out there. And after 20 years, we reassemble to share with each other and with you some of our observations. The last 20 years have been remarkable.
Haven't they?
They have put us
Yeah.
through the changes.
Yeah.
and we've put them through some changes.
There's no...
I know there's no us and them.
It's only us putting ourselves
I
through
know
changes.
you're going to say that.
I got to treat you language. I have to clean up his act.
I'll be the straight man.
Intern.
Richard is a Unitarian.
He ends up his book by calling me a theosophical Unitarian minister, right? Is that what you call me?
With a congregation of millions.
Congregation of millions, yeah. It's not a bad role. It's a little stodgy.
I know. Well,
I read his book. I read his book
that, Jeremy.
putting on this image of myself that his mind creates, you know, and I'm this horny minister, you know, is all I can describe myself as, with hope.
I use the metaphor, one of the books that really damaged my brain at an early age and left me hopelessly, kind of...
Whatever you
call that, was
it's too hopeless to remember.
Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. I think that's the ultimate American book. It's the, you know, the old trip up and down the river.
I only crossed the river.
Yeah. Helping to free any slaves along the way. So I can never figure out whether I'm Tom and you're Dick or...
Jerry. Tom and Jerry, I think it is.
Right. Or I'm Huck and you're Tom. Or...
Yeah. I always saw you as this captain of the African Queen. Which is funny considering, you know, and me standing behind you like Winston Churchill, being stolid. You know, he wasn't, it turned out, but he looked that way. I mean, how he looked, giving you courage to go on. That was the myth I used to work up.
Well, we got a few miles off that one.
We got miles out of so many scenarios and so many myths. You know, we still are.
Now, when we
whenever you want to play, just tell me.
Yeah, you can say one thing. When we left 20 years ago today, on our voyage of discovery, I've been very involved in politics, activism, prison escapes, running for governor, exile. I've been in 40 jails in 4 continents.
I haven't even been busted yet. I got a brand new belt. I'm ready to notch it.
We may have blown that whole stage.
Yeah. That seems past.
Well, I did it for you.
I appreciate it. I knew that at the time.
Yeah. I find that the metaphors I've been picking up in the last 20 years have been different naturally. I've gone through different terrains, learned new dialects, perfected some of the old dialects. The language is important, and as I listen to Richard and read what he writes, I see that he's saying very similar things, but in different words. At the moment, I'm very intrigued by the language of the information revolution, computeries. I'm entranced and enthralled by the notion of the brain as a network of 40 billion personal computers, apples and oranges and IBMs and the drugs or access codes and so forth, so that we have naturally picked up the dialects of the terrains we've been going through. I have been with Richard now for about almost 48 hours.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts on a farm, coming across northern Massachusetts. It's been intoxicatingly,
hasn't it?
wonderful.
Yeah, delicious.
48 hours.
Delicious.
We're just very happy to be here.
Yeah.
At this moment of reassembling, I would like to introduce to you the person who brought us together today. Our reunion is the conception, naturally, of a student. His name is Joey Casson. I ask you to join us in a grateful applause for our host.
It's interesting that you, Huckleberry Finn kind of imagery is your imagery. Because
Did you know, by the way, that Samuel Clemens, of course, grew up in Hannibal, Missouri, was working as a journalist or a typesetter, got a little bored, and what set him on his wondrous voyage of discovery and adventure, he read a book about some travels in South America, in which the adventurer reported that the South American Indians in the Andes were using a substance which they chewed or ingested, which gave them tremendous euphoria and energy. It came from the cocoa leaf. So he started his career as a wanderer by leaving Hannibal and going down to New Orleans, where he planned to take a boat to Peru and bring back and market to the American public a substance that would produce euphoria and energy, which, so, as Doc Hume says, there's a long tradition of neurochemistry that we are just beginning to...
I like you in spite of the methods we've used to get there. It's interesting. I saw Tim last year. I hadn't seen him for quite a while. We'd see each other off and on again, but it was often a little like we had no business with each other. But I really wanted to honor Timothy, and I went up to his beautiful home in the Hollywood Hills with an absolutely exquisite wife, Barbara, and son, Zach. And I brought fruit and wine, and beautiful day, and we sat outside in the sun. And there was a point, Tim and I exchanged, it's like explorers meeting, and where have you been, and let me describe the terrain there. And so. And then at one point in the living room, later in the evening, you and I were alone for a moment. I think Barbara was putting Zach to bed or something like that. And I said to you, Timothy, it's more beautiful than it's ever been before. It's all so empty. And you said it is for me too. Remember that? And it was like at that moment we met in a space that we know each other so well that exists behind all of the Leary drama and the Alpert drama and all that stuff. It was just a flicker, and it was like a reassurance in a way. It's like grace for me. Isn't that? Did you feel that when yeah. It's interesting because as explorers go in these different directions, any paranoia you've got you're going to feed upon it because the models are so disparate that I'll experience us as separate if I get caught in my model at all. And I keep getting caught, and so you became an object to me. Too bad about Tim. Got caught in materialism, wants to go into outer space, like, what kind of crap is that, inner space? Oh, yeah. Should we play that? Which one should we play? We better do. We've got to be out of here in 45 minutes, by the way. We have to stop in 45 minutes, so the question thing at some point, whenever you want.
There are tremendous differences that have been and always will be between us, because we come from different gene pools. We were exposed to different imprints as
at least
child. Yes, at
least,
yeah. And
I'm playing on the error variance. Go ahead.
I honor these differences, but there's a similarity that I find not just in us, but in hundreds, thousands, and I may be Celtic exaggerating here, but I would say millions of Americans that share our basic position, which is a discovery of, a resurrection of, an acceptance of, an eventual, occasional glorification of our singularity, our uniqueness, our rarity as highly special people. We're all that way.
The way I'd say it is the deeper I got, the deeper I could acknowledge that part of me which is one with everything. It just is. The deeper the faith, not belief, but faith, the more I could let myself into my humanity, into my uniqueness. And I've never been more fully unique than when I am least fully unique. I mean, I'm not, it's going from somebodyness to nobody's specialness to uniqueness. You know, it's like a unique face of God, of the formless. And it's interesting because when he said he went to prison for me, of course he does. Caspar Weinberg is working for me too. I'm carrying an American passport. I mean, what the hell? Let's take some questions. We have questions on either side, and we have to do them alternately. And don't yell out unless you're at a microphone. And where are we? There's one there, and where's the one over there? Okay. Why don't we start over here?
Okay. Basically, I have so many questions right now that I couldn't really think of one that would cover a broad spectrum of things I'd like to know from you. But
we got very little time.
All right,
so
the one that I'd like to ask is, where do we go from here? You know, I mean, you've set something up for us.
We got the question.
And yeah.
Where do we go from here? May I suggest something, Tim? Let me suggest you and I sort of face each other a little more and let the questions sort of come into the middle of the consciousness, and let's play with them for a couple minutes. Is that all right with everybody? It makes you a little into the role of being voyeurist, but that's not bad, you know. It's as fun as any other role. Is this okay? Okay. So the question before us, Doctor. Question, where do we go from here?
Well, everyone is pilot of your own spaceship, and there's no reason why you can't go wherever you want to go. Assuming you are serious enough and intelligent enough to get the navigational guides, to check out the landing strips, to know your equipment well enough to know what speed and altitude you can move at. But there's no reason why, at this moment in history, we are so fortunate, so blessed with options, and with virtuous perspectives. There's no limiting where any one of us can go individually or collectively.
I agree. I have a friend who is a disembodied being named Emmanuel. You have your kind of friends, I have mine, okay? And Emmanuel speaks through a lady named Pat Rodergast. And Emmanuel, who I trust completely, I said to him, Emmanuel, what do I tell people about death? He says, tell them it's absolutely safe. He said it's like taking off a tight shoe. Okay? Who wouldn't trust somebody like that? Okay? And Emmanuel said to me, you have the choice of whether you want to be the creator or the victim. He said that all form in the universe, including your mind and your thoughts, is part of law. It's unfolding lawfully. It's the karma unfolding, just law. And within that, there is no freedom. So there really is no freedom in form. The freedom comes as the formless creates the form. This is where the freedom is. And that freedom of the formless coming into form is a place from which you stand, in which you, or you don't stand, in which you experience the creation of your own universe around you. And he said, you have the choice. Do you want to identify with that, with the law, or do you want to identify with that which lies behind the law? And so I think your answer's right on. Everybody's got every possibility. I mean, I can see the kind of tinsely thinness of the whole political superstructure of the earth. It's like one thought away from something. Do you get that feeling? Go ahead. Question.
Thanks.
Yes. Richard Alpert, you said, Mr. Alpert, emptiness is form, form is emptiness. To deny this world is to go astray. Yet I couldn't help noticing during the course of this dialogue that now and then you would detach yourself and go into a meditation. It reminded me as I was watching you that Emerson once said, the unity of mankind is to be found when all of the uniters are perfectly isolated. Personally, I think this is a deception. I think that the unity of mankind is not to be found when we are detached from each other at all. We must make our oneness real. We must do the very thing you're doing in prisons.
Okay, we got the question. Come on, don't do that.
I'll say what I want, just as you did.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay.
We're all one, brother. I say what I want and I'm free
This is
too.
Cambridge and Harvard, okay.
Just answer my question.
Of course I'll answer your question.
If you wish. You don't have to either. You're free also.
I understand.
I like rowdy crowds.
I like best the rowdy ones where the hearts are open. You know? So, and just as long as there's love, there can be incredible rowdiness. That's like an Irish, thing, and, party. The minute the love gets brittle and everybody's trying to do it, when the humor gets that way, it's Shiva, but I don't particularly choose those evenings.
We can smother any aggression with mellow.
We're answering your question. Don't go away. I think that the Castaneda line of being an impeccable warrior is right on. And I think to be an impeccable warrior, you can't be a slob at any level. And the level at which we are at form, to be a conscious being means to care about other human beings and be involved with them and be responsible for them and to be sharing with them. And that unity is the physical vehicle into the other realms of unity. It's a method. It's the method of Tantra, of going through form to beyond form. And it's an honorable form. It's an honorable form. Question?
Yes, good afternoon. While I appreciate the Twain image, I personally would view it more as the Brett and Bart Maverick of the scene. I would like to ask you, Mr. Leary, what, A, was your relationship to the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, if any, in Southern California? And B, what did you think of Kesey's letter to you that was written, I believe, and published in Rolling Stone when you were in exile?
The Brotherhood of Eternal Love was a group of Southern California young people. It was about 8 or 10 men and women, couples, 16 or 20 men and women, who for one brief period were bringing in more dope into this country than perhaps anyone in history. There was that rare moment in American history when dope smuggling was if I can excuse the expression, a holy enterprise. They were, well, it should be, but these were the days before transport planes and Bolivian generals and million-dollar payoffs. These were kids, high school and college kids from Southern California that would go to Mexico on the road, beat up cars and drink tequila with the wonderful people down there and bring a few kilos back, smoke half and sell the rest. They were doing it conspicuous underconsumption. They drove terrible cars that were always breaking down on the highway filled with contraband. There were 8 or 10 of them. They became a legend. They became a myth. At one point, you could go in any youth ghetto in the Western world, or you could go to any town in Afghanistan or Lebanon or Pakistan and say the few magic syllables, brotherhood of eternal love, and you were immediately accepted. Then it became like any myth or institution. It became too popular. Pretty soon there were lots of people going around saying they were members of this group, and eventually it became like Johnny Walker after a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Like any other
illegal.
group. The same thing happened to Christianity, after...
Go.
Ken Kesey has always had a very interesting relationship with us. We honor and love and respect what Kesey did on the West Coast when we were in our more meditative and pedantic scholarly mood here at Harvard at Millbrook. Kesey and Ken Babbs and his group, the Merry Pranksters, just barreled across the United States, emitting day-glow sparks of illumination, and played a wonderful role.
I find Ken kind of dull.
Yeah. He has become dull.
Yeah, he has become dull, exactly.
But I think he'll come back.
Yeah, undoubtedly. We all do. Yeah. But I was trying to think of Dayglow Sparks, and I don't get that off that way from Ken.
I know, but we're in touch with Ken.
Tuning out, Ken.
We'll get him on a platform sometime, huh?
Question.
I'd like to ask about writing in collaboration with another person or in a team with people as a means of broadcast. Do you think it enhances or detracts creative output? Is there a good algorithm for multiplexing different inputs when you're trying to write in a team? And specifically, Dr. Leary, are you going to write with Robert Anton Wilson again, or would you with Aleister Crowley if you'd have had the shot at it?
Is that all that?
No, I didn't. Did you?
The question is about writing as teams and with other consciousnesses, like, who are you going to write with? Things like that. Or
that's an interesting question.
Input of a lot of ideas.
Yeah. The notion of the lonely writer in his or her garret and the pen pouring out the genius in that lonely room, being misunderstood or occasionally hitting, that's as old-fashioned to me as
the quill?
Yes, yeah.
The quill.
Or the Paleolith cave person on the wall. I think writing should be collaborative. I've been fortunate enough in the last 2 years to have simply the best publisher in the world, Jeremy Tarcher. Jeremy has provided me with editors so that I now see writing a book as like making a movie in which I start off with a scriptwriter. There are editors and film cutters, and anyone that walks in the room can read what we're doing, see what's on the wall, and change it. I noticed that your works have always been collaborative, and I think that the future of verbal communication is going to be
I'll tell you, something interesting happened to me is that and I think it was psychedelics and whatever Eastern trip I've gotten into, but there was some way in which I shifted from vertical to horizontal social structure. And I really started to appreciate what networking was about. And I saw that it was that even though, like at this moment, we're playing these roles of specialness, if you will, I don't experience that as any more, that's just like a dream reality to me. And behind it all, here you are and here I am and so on. And in a way, that networking quality makes collaboration so much easier because you see that everybody has a lot to offer all the time.
My next book is my autobiography. It's called Flashbacks, and I really think you should.
Good book.
Brain Damage Incorporated, but when it comes out in paperback, I'm going to insist, if I can do it, that the contract be such that the book can be changed and revised by any reader. The book is on, it's on a word processing disk, an enormous disk, not a little sloppy floppy disk. And I'm going to invite any reader who has a different image of that particular event, because hundreds and hundreds of people are involved in each of these scenes in my book, or anyone that had a different version of that period can write in a line, a paragraph, even a page, and if it fits, and if we can use it, we'll put that new version in so that the next edition of the book and the subsequent edition of the book will be an ongoing,
Excuse me?
I don't revise books. I mean, I shudder at some of the things that were written then, but I figured finally to just let it all rest as stuff behind and clear the decks and make the statement afresh each time. Question?
Yes.
Into the mic?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to know, this is directed to you, Tim, what some of your opinions are on the physically adverse effects on the brain, on the drug that we've been talking about here today. And also I'd like you to expand a bit on what the government has done in terms of looking towards the future, perhaps in looking towards helping psychiatric patients through the positive effects of the drug, and how that has also had an effect on you in terms of what the government has done to you over the last 20 years. So it's a three-part question.
The second part had to do with guns?
Huh?
Guns?
No, it has nothing to do with guns.
What was the second part?
Psychiatric. The government is, what's the government doing in the future about getting funds or support for psychiatric use of psychedelics? And what are the negative funds? Not guns.
Do you think
is that your
there's
answer,
a
or do you want to give more?
In other words, do you think there is a future where instead of the government constantly trying to put it down, do you think there's an opening in the future for looking towards this drug as a way of helping psychiatric patients?
I think anyone that looks to the government...
Yeah, I mean, that's really... Good. I hear that one.
Looks to the government to solve any problem is kind of looking in the wrong direction.
It's like looking to your intellect to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
In government, which is hierarchical, and literally the scum rises to the top. And
no, hey. That is much too shoddy a cop-out. I mean, I've got to admit, I am part of the 6% of the population using 50% of the resources. And that part of me that likes to drive my MG over nice roads and have all those kind of facilities in life is saying to Caspar Weinberger, go, baby, go. At the same time, I'm screaming, stop, you idiot, you scum, you everything. And I see it's not good enough to scapegoat anymore. That who we are is who we are. And I figure I got to find a way to love that bastard. It's tough, but that's it. That's it, because the game isn't good enough. It's not interesting enough.
I feel that the very notion that the government, that the state abrogates the right to decide how I'm going to change my mood, or how we're going to alter our brain chemistry, or how we're going to expand or contract or accelerate our consciousness, is that, number one, it's impossible.
Stay with the microphone a little bit.
Ah, yes, stay with the microphone, yeah.
Or take it out of the stand if you want.
Yeah,
Hold
I
it.
should do that. If I can.
Yeah, sure.
Good. Back to rock and roll.
Go ahead, you can sit and pace. I'll stand with you.
Such notions of government control are ludicrous, impossible, and simply won't work. The baby boom generation is now between the ages of 18 and 36. In the next 2 to 6 years, the generation born after Hiroshima, which kind of came up in the 60s and has been preparing during the 70s, this generation is going to take responsibility. And among the many things that this generation will do will be to eliminate the hierarchical structure, will certainly eliminate the nuclear arms situation, and surely will get the government out of our bodies, out of our bedrooms, out of our nervous systems.
I don't think it'll change, you know. I don't think all that'll happen. And I think it's all right that all that doesn't happen. I mean, I see it as an exquisite dialogue between the human heart and the human intellect. The intellect ends up in Washington, and the human hearts are the human hearts. They're everybody around. And I see that the individual human heart is the strongest social institution going. And that when the balance gets too far out, the human heart just reasserts itself. Just that intuitive sense of the rightness of things, which is when you say the citizens will rise up. But it's everybody that rises up. I mean, Caspar Weinberg has got the same place in him that you and I have in us. And it's that thing rises up and says, oh, cut the shit, man. This isn't good enough. We can't bomb ourselves out to oblivion just to be right. This is absurd. And it's only, it's an interesting place where, like on June 12th, standing in New York with like 700,000 people and sensing. We stood in the corner of 48 and First Avenue from 9:15 until 1:20 in the afternoon before we moved, just body to body, pressed together, thousands, hundreds of thousands. And there was no complaining, griping. Everybody felt so blown away to be part of a statement which each individual chose to be part of it, that freely. To me, those are very great signs of the way in which the whole psychedelic and me generation and all that reaction and all the actions and reactions we've gone through keep bringing us to more wisdom manifested in statements that are, we're not asking you, Caspar, whether we're going to change it. We're just telling you it's going to be changed. You know, and then we just state, who are we? Who are we? Now who are we? Now who are we? And we trust. That's what Gandhi played with. Played with that same juice.
Gandhi's not... I'm an E.T. man myself.
I did it that time. Here we go. It's the Oscars, ladies and gentlemen, Gandhi versus E.T. And in that corner, we have E.T. Wait a minute, I'll get back into my position here to take off my Get Best Dressed award in my loincloth.
For many reasons, I live in Hollywood now. And because I think it's important to influence the people that are making movies, because movies influence so many people. And like everyone else, I'm appalled and discouraged by the violence and the crudity that comes out of our television and movie studios. I think it was a wonderful, wonderful confrontation. That's what it was between two legendary spiritual images. The little fella from up there and the little brown man from down here. I saw Gandhi as playing to the old, outworn metaphors of the past. This saintly, medieval person with a robe and sandals and a staff walking among the poor, quite anti-technology. He didn't know a little bit that high tech can also mean high touch with his spinning wheel. The last scene when suffering from anorexia nervosa, it's right out of the Catholic Bible. Here's the sinner, you know, the fellow that had killed the Muslims. The sinner confesses. The aging, dying, holy saint blesses him and he kisses his feet. And the saint goes off to get crucified. Now, as Drew Barrymore would say, give me a break.
Ben Kingsley,
I thought Attenborough, yes.
Ben Kingsley did it well, didn't he?
Yeah. Couldn't he play the part of Ben Kingsley? Isn't that wonderful? Put you on a diet.
Well, we would say.
What was the question?
Somebody seems to know what the question was. Any what? Brain damage? Here we are. We either are or we aren't. I don't know. I mean, here we are. All we have to do is get up here. You know, in terms of the answer to brain damage. Was that the question, or was it
Short-term
guns?
memory loss is one of the occupational hazard.
I got up to give a 10-year retrospective at the transpersonal psychology meetings in Asilomar last year. And I stood up on a Saturday night, and my consciousness was floating around so far, I couldn't even remember yesterday. You know, I couldn't figure out any cosmic time span to play in.
I didn't actually hear the question that clearly. It had something to do with drugs and funds.
The girl's question we're talking about?
Yeah.
What is it that's bothering somebody? What is it? Which question is it? Right. Okay, there's the question, Timothy. I think that it's possible that you might damage your mind, but I don't think LSD does.
The answer is flat. No, it doesn't.
We were serious, and the answer's no. Question over here.
Yes. This question is for Dr. Leary. I am dressed as a sort of a Sprite can in green with to attract you and the red to make you buy, because I'd like to ask you about getting a job, either working for you or with you, on either the SMILE project or any other project in which you're working on this research or a program that you're affiliated with.
You have a question? He wants a job.
And I'll be glad to provide you with any information you need to aid in that decision.
Why don't we meet at the reception and
okay,
and talk it over?
Great, I'd love to. Thank you.
Don't come to me for a job. I'm a wandering mendicant. I don't. Question over there?
Yes, Dick, when you were talking about the thoughts arising, existing, and then passing away, in between there was a space you talked about. And when you were in Kansas, you stepped back enough, I guess, and you said, through no choice of your own, you entered that space. I was wondering if you could either elaborate that on that or deny it. I don't know. I thought I heard
what I meant was it was my choice. Hello? Is this where it was my choice to ask to die at that point, or whatever that meant, cease to exist as a separate consciousness. The way in which the thoughts slowed down, it was as if then the ocean was there and I was floating into it. It wasn't like there was an intentional act to do that at that moment. So I understood it as surrender that is no surrender. You're welcome. Question?
I have no question, only I wanted to take a moment as a part of the audience to say thank you for being here today and bringing us to this experience.
Thank you. We are thanked. There was a question earlier about where do we go from here. And My feeling is that we see through scenarios and myths so much that all we can do from here is be true to ourselves from moment to moment. Because every time we say, well, where we go from here is up, we are already sending a whole structural thing forward.
Well, I'm very willing to do that.
Yeah, I understand, as long as you don't get trapped in them.
Yeah. At 10:30, 11, at 12 on a Sunday morning, probably not the best time to be strobing and strafing you with hundreds of new ideas, which I'd be very like to do under different circumstances. I have a meter, it's called RPM, revelations per minute, and I have many thoughts about where to go in the future, which have to do with new breakthroughs in nuclear physics.
15 minutes, go ahead.
Well, no, just for 1 minute. The new breakthroughs in nuclear physics, the new breakthroughs in Prigoggine's understanding of how evolution works. We've repealed the second law of thermodynamics. Sheldrake's new theories of morphogenic resonance. Everywhere you look in science, there are new breakthroughs that are leading us to, pulling us, escalating us to a new level of understanding, which change our opinions of human nature. The genetics, where we can now, through recombinant techniques, literally take over wisely and virtuously the role of creating and recreating life. The new brain research, the personal computers of Job and Wozniak, which are, I think, as important as the introduction, certainly, of the printing press, the new brain chemistry, the new concepts of sociobiology, the new understanding of social demographics, neurogeography that tells us where you are determines who you are, habitat determines species. I could go on listing dozens and dozens of breakthroughs and experiments in science, the new astronomy, all of which seem to center on this one issue, that our species has come to a position where we can intelligently and virtuously determine what's happening with our own brain, with our own DNA code. We can move our bodies, move our equipment, move our brain. We are literally at a position where collectively, working in harmony, we can do most of the things that and take the responsibilities which in the past have been attributed to the great deities of the past. I think the golden age is ahead. It's the golden age of humanist science, humanist technology, pagan science, pagan technology, high tech, high touch. There's in every field. There's
I think that you could float through all those impressive list of places in which there were breakthroughs, one after another, and flip planes that fast, because you rest nowhere. And so if from that place, it all is this incredibly creative act, and you can do anything and you can play any way you want to. But the place we share is the place that stands nowhere. Not the place that's caught in the spirals that involve intellectual advance or now we know it, so on. That's all like little ripples on the ocean.
Or another way to put it, we're moving from one star system or one galaxy or one spatial resting place to another. It's the old particle wave theory. We jump the void, and when we're in that void, we're together. Yeah. We may land on different planets, different lobes of the brain. There's no getting away from the fact that it's all on, off, void, structure, form, structure. Atomic physics tells us that. Right on. The brain works that way. So that, am I more interested in the many landing places and you more in the void?
I don't think so. No. I don't think so. I think we're just sharing an ecstatic delight in the uniquenesses of the way the form manifests. I mean, I'm really an appreciator of the way you are manifesting this lifetime, and you of me. And in a way, it's because we rest in the place behind that. If we're busy being you and me, it's exciting. And I don't want to be not you and me, but I don't want to be only you and me. Okay, that's all.
I think we've escaped that trap.
I think we do most of the time. I know nothing about the future.
On the other hand, there are very fascinating differences between us. And to say this is not to make invidious, that's the glory and the wonder of it. And we mustn't just go away feeling that it's all wonderful and mellow here on Sunday. It
Yes,
is
you
mellow,
can.
but
Yeah.
there are also a long list of exciting contextual differences that are kind of fun to bring up. And
Why don't you list them?
well, I listed some of them then.
I'll
tell you, for example.
Give me a whole list.
I'll tell you, for example, when Richard uses words like God or spiritual, and occasionally you call upon the name of Christ, wow, that's...
The great way is not
that's
difficult.
far out.
The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. But make the slightest distinction, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. They have the form and the formless. You know?
But yet the words do have semantic meaning. And as I said at the
The
beginning...
fact that you're reacting to those is your problem. It's your attachment. I use God the way I use it. Why should that upset you? It's none of your business what words I use to talk about what model. They're just scenarios. It's like Walter Cronkite saying that's the way it is tonight. That's just the way Walter Cronkite thinks it is tonight.
But I also think of the semantic meaning to other people.
Yeah,
what the word God would mean or the word Christ
Yeah.
would mean.
I think it means a mystery, a doorway to an unknown, an unnameless Yahweh, yeah. The 99 names, none of which say what it is. And don't you want to keep everybody right at the edge of the form and the formless? Because that's where the ultimate act of creation is. For some people, God is a total drag, and for other people, it's a doorway. And I just send out as many doorways as I can, because all the doorways lead to the same place as far as I'm concerned. Somebody's used every one of them.
I think that it's our duty as explorers and as frontier scouts for our species to invent new terminologies. We don't say, well, I went out in the spaceship and I climbed the mountain and I went over the hill and I found this incredibly new terrain and I'm going to call it God. Let's call it, New Jersey. I really feel that words are tremendously important, and when I give college lectures to young people, I say, we've got to develop a new terminology. We simply can't use the language that has been around for 3,000 or 4,000 years because more people have been killed in the name of God than any other word around.
How many have been about to be killed by science?
Well, I never use the word science unless I use the adjective pagan science or humanist science. Or,
It's like a symphony orchestra out here of images.
Did you finish that? I didn't hear that one.
Question over here.
Yes, I was wondering, it's addressed to both of you. Would you care to make any specific predictions? There seems to be a regrouping that took place in the late 70s, and there are many similarities, to me at least, between, let's say, 1963 and 1983. Would you care to make any predictions on the remainder of the 80s?
Which groupings do you have in mind?
Anyone.
I'm very uninterested in the way in which shared awareness manifests, whether it gets groupy or not. I mean, what I experience is what I'd call a Martian takeover of a shared awareness that when you meet somebody, you can look them in the eye for a second and you know, they know, you know, they know, and there we are. And I don't need that I have to wear badges or join clubs for that. So I'm not sure whether mass movement in the sense that I don't think numbers is necessarily the only, that's power, worldly power is the only way social change comes about. I mean, I really feel it's much more interesting than that, much more so. So, you know, he's talking about the 80s.
Do you vote?
Yes.
You do? I would love to vote. I would love to vote.
You can't. You're an ex-criminal, aren't you?
No, I think I can vote.
Yeah, well, why don't you?
Matter of fact, yeah. Well, I haven't been excited about the choices.
No, I haven't either.
And I felt that not voting...
I don't think the political arena is where social change occurs.
Yeah.
It follows. It always comes later. Mm-hmm. They're just reactive. They got pollsters in the White House. I mean, there's the sole man in the Oval Office reading his polls to decide how to think, which is great from our point of view. We do have an actor. We have just what we wanted. All we have to do is accept the responsibility for the programming. And that happens out of the individual human hearts that don't feel good, and they say to him, hey, baby, you're not playing my, you're not my lead anymore. And it moves. I think Ronnie listens to Nancy, and Nancy listens to Ronnie, and sometimes through them they listen to some human heart that beats in there. Yes. And that's the channel through as far as I'm concerned.
I generally, in lectures, I think am much more assertive and aggressive. I make fun of Reagan, and I don't, make love to Caspar Weinberger. I feel that it's my function, rightly or wrongly, to, as an Irish storyteller, to play that role of making fun.
A storyteller lives in the world of good and evil.
Yeah. Of good and evil.
Yeah. But you and I both can play in the world of good and evil without getting caught in righteousness.
So I tend to be probably much more abrasive than you, and I stir up more.
But I see that as just a different form. I don't see it as better or worse.
But I
stir up too. I connect people who have seen each other as opponents and say, I'm going to say no to you, Caspar. I'm going to stop you if I possibly can, but I'm not going to put you out of my heart. And that means something. That's opening a gate that's been closed for too damn long.
I agree with that. I spent about 4 years in prison and 2 years in exile, and I have papers, freedom of information stuff on what the government was doing. They were really following all of us around. They were really doing rather dirty tricks to us during that period. And yet, I am always prepared when I meet a guard or a prison official or an ex-sheriff or anyone from the past. The first time I meet them and they walk in and I look in their eyes, I'm ready to start right over again.
Great, beautiful.
As an example of that, I spend quite a bit of time these days debating with my absolute worst enemy, G. Gordon Liddy. And I find this extremely interesting that I'm wearing him down.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I'm mellowing that mother out. And,
that is gutsball, I'll tell you.
He sometimes complains both privately and even publicly that if this goes on,
but you're not actually
he's going to be out of a job because his job is being a bad guy.
I understand, but you see the way you're not opponents is you both work for the same lecture agent. See, you're collaborating to compete, and you're both conscious at both levels. So you're good sports in that sense. Because if he was just busy being the bad guy, he wouldn't play with you.
I totally agree with you.
Okay, go ahead.
And to support your position, which is a very radical love position, tossing love bombs in public, I've had 3 interesting experiences just this week.
Yeah.
One is to come to Harvard and to have David McClellan, who fired us, lovingly reintroduce us. Then last week, the publicist for my book said, listen, it would be wonderful if we could get a review of your book from the Prison Wardens magazine. And I said, is there such a thing? So I called Sacramento State Capitol and said, where's Ray Procunier now, who is the Director of Corrections for the state of California? He ran 20 prisons, 18 of which I was fortunate enough to inhabit. And, I finally tracked him down. He's now the Commissioner of Corrections for the state of Virginia. So I called him. When he got on the phone, he said, Timmy, my boy. What's the matter? Are you in trouble again? You need some help? You know? You're the favorite prisoner that ever escaped from my prison. I said, well, look, Ray, I need a blurb for my book. Then, day after tomorrow, I'm going to be debating G. Gordon Liddy, who started his career by walking into my bedroom on an April midnight and busting me and my wife for the possession of peat moss. These reunions of people that used to be on other sides of teams, I think is something that's happening right now. Not just in my life or in your life, but I think we all are getting that feeling that it's time to get it together and move on.
I hear that. It is. Speaking of it's time to get together and move on, we have to stop.
Richard Alpert. I was just born as a human being, and then I learned this whole business of who I am and whether I'm good or bad or achieving or not. All that's learned along the way. And you see all those learned things separate. So you start to have this dissociative experience of where all that you become is awareness, is a point of awareness. That's all that's left. I remember the first time this happened to me, as professor went and middle-class boy went and pilot went and all of my games were like going off into the distance. I got this terrible panic because indeed I was going to cease to exist. And I got the panic, which is the panic that precedes the psychological death, because indeed Richard Alpert was dying.